Hi there, happy condo drawers. I thought I'd talk a little bit about some quick ways to take advantage of having your floor plan in AutoCAD, but also use SketchUp to get some quick 3D drawings that you can trace. And so, first of all, this AutoCAD file here you can see has a bunch of layers. Somebody was very good about layered management, and although I'm not sure I recognize some of the names, but some you can recognize. A-wall is usually a wall. There's some options. These are actually the AIA standard layers. I don't know where she learned that. I didn't show her that. Anyway, what you can do when you have a plan already done in AutoCAD, you can just save it. One thing you want to do, though, when you save it is make sure that it's an older version of AutoCAD. Again, depends on when you installed AutoCAD on your computer. It may or may not be the latest. So just when you save it, on a PC you will see this file format button here automatically. On a Mac, you have to kind of click this down arrow to see it. And there's a number of options. 2007 was a fine year, so I would use that. And click Save. I'm going to cancel because I've already saved it. And that is a file that you can bring right into SketchUp. And let's go take a look at SketchUp. Here's the base conditions of the project that I believe is called Sienna. In fact, here, let's take a look. This is the floor plan that I was sent by your instructors. Well, two of them anyway. I never did get anything from the third instructor. So this is the base plan. Apparently you're ignoring all the chases and other stuff, which I guess is okay. And then, this was the building that I saw. So I'm going to guess that it's some combination of either gray or black windows. And, I don't know if there were instructions about how high up this thing is supposed to be and all that. So I'll let your studio instructors help you out with that one. All right. Once you have the CAD plan in a version of AutoCAD that SketchUp can read, you just go to the File pull-down menu and choose Import. And obviously browse for the plan. Here's my AutoCAD plan. There are some options. Typically, I don't mess with these because usually everything in AutoCAD is already in inches. Click OK and Import. And it might take a second, and it might give you a message saying, here's all the stuff that I got, which you basically don't have to worry about. So there's your CAD plan, and you can just move it into position here. Obviously, the two plans match. So this is the kind of simplest way to do it. And what you can do is you can now draw some rectangles to try and draw up the walls. Okay, and when you use the push-pull tool, which is the way you draw the walls up, see how I'm dragging it up? I can just type in 9 feet, and if you look down in the lower right, that number goes automatically in that measurements box. And then when I hit enter, it becomes 9 feet. At least I think it does. So that way you can pretty quickly draw up all the walls. And again, just drawing rectangles on top of the floor is one quick way to do it. Also, when I'm push-pulling it, I could type in 9 feet again, or I could push-pull it and use this other wall as the same height. And of course, if these are off, we can fix them. And then you see how this wall continues here. I can actually just use push-pull. I don't need to draw another rectangle. And in fact, I could just keep doing that if I wanted. Either one works. I'm not sure any one is all that much faster. So what to do about this door opening is a problem, and you could absolutely just go get a door from the components browser or from the 3D warehouse. But probably easier is to just draw a door opening with a rectangle. I'll just draw one in the middle of this wall to show you, first of all, the value down on the lower right. It actually has 2 numbers. So the first one is the height, and the second one is the width. So we know the doors are 6'8", and I can type in comma, however wide this one is, 2'8", if you want to be exact. If not, obviously you can just rough it. And this rectangle obviously wants to match up with wherever your door is. And in fact, you can copy the rectangle, just Command-C, and then paste it in somewhere else. Anyway, I'm just going to move it down here to where the door opening is. Oh, and I guess the door opening was a little wider than I thought, so I'll just stretch this guy out ever so slightly. And then you can use push-pull. I'll tap P for push-pull. And when you do that, see how I have grabbed the surface? What I want it to do is be on the opposite side of this wall. The way you force it to do that is you move your mouse over either an end point or some point along this edge of the opposite side of the wall, and then you end up with a door opening. Okay? And you know, you may or may not, if you were more precise or less precise, you may have like a little leftover bit or not. So you could keep doing that, building up your interiors pretty quickly. And then I would recommend putting in all the furniture in the spaces that you see. And again, you can go to the 3D warehouse and download furniture. I'm not quite sure. I guess she's got a kitchen here, and I'm sure there's some rules about what they want you to draw. So you'll want to follow that. But so this would be probably a space that you'd want to fully furnish, or wherever the living room is. The bathroom and all that, you probably won't need to furnish that because you're probably just going to trace your AutoCAD plan. And of course, the trick is if you do make wholesale design changes here, that could mess it up. But you might want to go back and modify your AutoCAD plan. So that's the basics of how you get a plan in a simple way. Let me just, I'm going to revert back to a simpler view here so that I can show you another blank file and just show you a slightly different method. Again, those of you who are really good at AutoCAD, you might want to try this, which is you can just make all the interior walls, which she's put on a layer. It only works if you've had excellent layer discipline. What you can do is you can use the Layer Isolate tool. And I have my Layers menu open, and the Layer Isolate tool looks, I don't know what that little icon looks. Here, let's zoom in on it. Looks like, I don't know, a little blue layer on the bottom of a bunch of other layers. Anyway, the icon is the same Mac or PC. If you click on that and click on the interior walls layer and hit enter, now I just have all the interior walls visible. Probably these doors should be on another layer, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, if you select all those walls, AutoCAD, normally it probably looks, the properties menu looks kind of like this. If you go to the all section of the properties menu, you can give these lines a thickness. In this case, 9 feet, I believe, is your interior height. And then when you do that, what you can do, you can export this model as just the walls. And let me try doing that. File, save as, and I'll call this just walls. You could also export it with all the other stuff in there, but I'm going to do just the walls and show you what that looks like. And now when I go to my SketchUp model, I'll import it in the same way. File, import, and browse to find my file, import. And what you'll see, because we added thickness, oh, I guess I got the whole thing. What you'll see, I probably should delete all those other things in this model, is that now I have the walls already in here. Okay, it's a little more tricky to do it this way. Just because, first of all, you have to have good layer discipline in AutoCAD, and not all of us are so disciplined in AutoCAD. The other thing is, well, you know, what's happening up here at the top of the door, you're going to have to go in and edit this AutoCAD file, and you can just double click on it. But now you have to draw in like a rectangle or something, and you should be able to push-pull that rectangle across and seal the opening. Okay, and if there's extra lines, sometimes there are extra lines. Again, whenever you build something in another program, sometimes you end up with just weird stuff. Sometimes you can erase them, sometimes you can't. And obviously, it's silly for me to erase that line, because when am I going to see it on the inside of a closet or whatever that is? Anyway, this method, if you bring in just the walls, then you don't have all the furniture in the plan. If you do have all the furniture, again, you might have to double click on the existing AutoCAD plan to edit it, and then you might want to just delete all this stuff. If you were good with layers, what you'll find is that SketchUp has layers as well, and you can probably start turning off the visibility of a bunch of these layers. You know, again, you don't want to turn off the layer of stuff you don't want to see, but if there's, let's see, cabinets, built-in, not sure what some of this stuff is here, furniture, kitchen cabinets, there you go. So you might start to clear it up a little bit and save yourself some effort. But anyway, when you're done editing that plan, just click outside of it. Now, I have made, this is actually the model we used in class, the file. I have two views in this project, and you'll see there's a ceiling in here that I just put in, just a generic ceiling. Well, what you'll see is now we're inside this model. If I take the view to the front or view to the back, and depending on where your walls are, it could be a pretty boring view. Now, there's a couple of view tools down here in the lower left that you can use to modify your view. First of all, the look around tool is a good one because you can kind of click and drag and see what's going on in the space. I'm just clicking and dragging my left button. Now, maybe there's nothing all that exciting in that part of the room. Let's see what we get when we look this way. Oh yeah, that's much better. And I think this was the living room anyway. So what you'll want to do is set up your perspective view of, and of course I don't know what furniture goes in here, so I'd want to make a perspective view that's nice. You can also use pan. Okay. The other thing that a lot of teachers really like is when you, especially if you're tracing, so you want it to have a hand-drawn look, choose this two-point perspective view. Okay. And this view makes all the vertical lines snap to exact vertical, just like when we were taking photos in the basement. So this is a file you could trace pretty quickly, especially if you have furniture in here. And scale figures. I would absolutely recommend using the people in SketchUp. Okay, if you just use the flat AutoCAD plan, excuse me, you can just delete it and begin tracing. Now, other things that you can do, let's say I want another perspective view. I can set up a perspective view, maybe from this corner, looking in the opposite direction. I just have to use the position camera tool, which looks like a little person standing on an X. So click the little person standing on an X, place them on the other side of the room. You see how I've zoomed into that other side? And now I can click and drag and see the opposite side of the room. Okay, and again, you'll want to compose the view so that it looks nice, make it, you know, orbit or pan to really make the view well composed. And then, again, I recommend doing this two-point perspective, just it looks really nice. So anyway, once you have made a change, and I just have these two views, make sure you right-click on that view and choose Update. And that way, when you click on these, it will remember. So for example, I have this view to back, which was not very exciting, and this view to front, well, that's looking a lot nicer. Oh, except I forgot to save my other view. So let me put my little guy back on the other side of the room. And if I want to save this particular view, again, I'll put myself in two-point perspective, all you do is you right-click on one of these saved scenes and choose Add. Okay? And what that will do is see how it made a new scene here. These are called scenes up at the top. You can pretty quickly jump from one to the other. Okay? So lastly, there are a few things that you can do to make your tracing job a little easier. The easiest one, there's a number of view controls. The one that I like to use if I know I'm going to trace, which actually I never do, but if I were to trace, I could choose hidden line, this face style hidden line. Hidden line basically makes it black and white. You can see this is a really easy image to trace because it's just lines, and in fact there's a modicum of line weights here. These forward edge lines are ever so slightly darker. So you absolutely would save yourself some time. If you'd rather, you can actually just, if you don't have all this junk on the plan, you can literally hand render right on top of this drawing. If you prefer that option, you can hand render right on the print. all you need to do, you might want to go to the Styles menu. And what that has, let me just show you here, the Styles menu has a number of features. If you go to the Edit tab, well, first of all, there's a number of styles that you can choose from. Let's try sketchy edges here. Let's look for some that have sketchy edges. This is probably the easiest way to make it look hand-drawn, okay? And see how as I click on these different ones, they really look sketchy. And you might say, hey, isn't this called SketchUp? And it is, in fact, called SketchUp. So if you like one of these, and here's one, this is one of my favorites, the black on white. If you like one of these, just right-click on your scene and choose Update, and it will remember. So you can have scenes with different styles applied to them. Again, you see this one looks the way the sort of default value is. This one looks like this funky way. So if you're going to trace right on the print, this is the way to do it. One thing to notice, by the way, see how there's kind of these gray areas? Those are what are called section planes. And what we need to do is turn those off. Just go to View, Section Planes, and again, I'm going to update this guy. So, and whatever, we can save as a new style. So pretty quickly you can get a base drawing. The only problem is, of course, like any computer drawing, if you have like weird random lines, you probably don't want those. Okay. Now, other things that you can do, in this view of the model, I have hidden the the ceiling. But let's say I want a view of this room, whatever this is, the lounge. I can take my little guy and I can place it in the doorway. You see how I can see this room. I can even use the zoom tool to zoom in and out. Maybe I want a sort of dramatic framing of that view with the doorway, compose it as a nice 1 point, and let's even do force it to have a 2-point perspective. See how nice that looks? The only problem is I don't see the ceiling. The reason I don't see the ceiling is it's turned off. Now, what we can do, ceiling is on a different layer. So if we go to layers, and again, this is kind of leveraging your AutoCAD skills. Here's the ceiling layer. I can just turn it on, see how it shows up there. And in fact, those of you, again, everybody's skills are different, but if you feel like, oh, I want, I don't know, some kind of custom light fixture, the ceiling is just something you can draw on. You know, so if you want, I don't know, some ziggurat-y kind of light fixture, you could come in and pretty quickly create some interesting kind of effect. We're not going to learn for a while how to make this actually light up, but for now, you can see how you can create some pretty interesting stuff. And let me go. I like to go with my sketchy styles here. By the way, if you found a style that you put in your model and you're like, oh, where did that one go? You can look here in the styles menu, and you can find stuff that's in your model already. Okay. And usually it's a lot fewer. So say, oh, I used one of these, didn't I? Was it this one? Nah. Was it this one? Nah. Maybe it was this one. Yeah, that was it. Okay. So you see how if you've used a style, you can call it back up again. Anyway, I'm going to save this view. What I want to do is just right-click on some other view and choose Add. Okay. And if you're real anal retentive and you just want to make sure everything is nice and orderly, you can, of course, rename these guys to call it view of whatever this is. I don't know, living room, I guess. Okay? All right, and some of these come in with other objects, and you get all sorts of weird stuff that comes in with components. So that is basically how you can take an AutoCAD file and fairly quickly convert it to something that will give you a sort of underlay trace file. Again, rendering style, I believe you guys are going to have some tutorials. We did really just pencil work in our class. So you can take the printout, if you have a clean printout, and draw a pencil right on the paper. You can also draw it on vellum and tracing paper or tracing paper. You can also use markers. Some students like markers, some don't, and some teachers prefer markers and some don't. So again, if you use the printout, it's going to behave quite differently. So I would strongly recommend doing some testing.